Hidden cruise discounts, special dessert deliveries, and shorter water coaster wait times, we're about to make your next Disney cruise a whole lot easier. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog, and my goal for today's video is to make sure there are no rocky waters for your upcoming Disney cruise. Metaphorically speaking, that is. I can't control the rocks or the weather. The team and I are frequent cruisers, so a lot of these easy tricks we had to learn from trial and error, but that's all worth it when you get to report back to you and help you avoid the same learning experiences, so to speak, and you can just skip to the good parts. Now, before we get started, we do have a free downloadable Disney Cruise Ultimate Guide that we'd love to hook you up with if you're looking for more information and handy-dandy advice about each of the Disney cruise ships. So go ahead and scan the QR code you see on the screen now, or head on over to disneyfoodblog.com/cruise planning right after this. Okay, let's dig into our 50 easy tricks that are going to make your Disney Cruise Line voyage so much easier. First, pack your personal item the smart way. So packing for a cruise is a lot like packing for a flight. You're allowed a personal item like a purse, a fanny pack or backpack, a carry-on, and 2 pieces of checked luggage per person. You'll receive luggage tags for the 2 pieces of checked luggage prior to your cruise. Now, because your luggage won't be delivered up to your stateroom until 1:30 p.m. and probably later, it's important to pack necessities that you need to keep with you, like any important medications or electronic devices, even a swimming suit for the pool when you first get on the ship, inside your personal item or carry-on that you're taking on the ship with you and not checking it through when you first get to the terminal. That way, you won't be panicked if you don't end up seeing said important items for the next few hours. Now, this next one is super fun. Don't forget to request a free character call. Let's get all hyped up before your cruise begins. Well, you can get your kids hyped up with this, but to be fair, the grown-ups are kind of hyped up too. You can request a complimentary character call. This is where a Disney character of your choosing will call up your family and basically tell you to have a fun trip and make lots of memories. It's cute and it's super easy to set up. After you booked your cruise, visit the My Reservations section on the Disney Cruise website and select Request Call next to the free character call header. This link is going to take you to a site where you can choose a Disney character, enter your phone number, and schedule a call time. Just note, there is a limit of 2 calls per reservation, so you can't just keep asking the characters to call you back all the time. After all, they've got a lot more phone calls to make before your ship sets sail. But this is a great way to surprise somebody with a cruise, or let your kids know that you're going on a cruise, or something like that. Now, here's something that I still forget about almost every time I cruise. Instead of regular light switches in the staterooms where you'll just flip the lights on and off whenever you need them, you'll turn on the lights by inserting a card into the light slot that's next to the door. Disney would like you to use your Disney Cruise Line key card, since that forces you to retrieve it and turn off the lights before you leave the room to save energy. But not everyone always remembers to do that, meaning you could very well accidentally lock yourself out of your room. Guilty. This happens all the time. But here's the thing. Those Disney Cruise Line key cards don't have any special chip or barcode that powers your room. Literally any key card will do. So bring maybe a gym membership card or a used up gift card or any sort of card to insert into the light slot instead. I usually use my AAA card. While I still absolutely recommend that you don't forget to turn the lights off before you head out of your stateroom, it's nice to know that even if you do forget, you're not going to be temporarily locked out of your room as a punishment. Now, I love this tip. Each day of your trip, there's going to be a drink of the day deal going on. Now, while regular soft drinks and tea are already included with your stateroom price, cocktails and other specialty drinks are not. But the drink of the day is going to be discounted, so you can purchase it out of pocket without having to pay full price. You can see what the current drink of the day option is for each day of your cruise by checking the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app once you're on board. But let's really get the most out of the cocktail discount, okay? Each of the Disney cruises also has souvenir refillable drink of the day cups available to purchase. Now, these cups allow you to receive a larger serving, about 1/3 more in liquid ounces, of the drink of the day than if you were to purchase it without the souvenir cup. To track down these cups, just look for the drink trays being carried by the Disney Cruise Line crew on embarkation day, typically served during sail-away party time. You can also buy these cups anytime during your cruise while supplies last by asking a bartender or deck attendant about them, but definitely get them sooner rather than later if you want to use them to really get your money's worth out of them. And don't forget to take the drink of the day cup with you on Castaway Key Day. The bartenders on the island will still honor the drink of the day discount if they serve said drink at their particular location. Okay, one more cup tip and then I'm moving on. If your kids want to be part of the refillable fund, there is a similar offering for a souvenir kids smoothie cup. This cup is also typically offered during the sail away celebration and lets you fill up on larger smoothie refills than if you were to purchase them on their own. Now, I'm talking a lot about the Navigator app, so one tip that is probably the biggest tip is to learn all the ins and outs of the Navigator app. I cannot emphasize enough just how important this cruise tip is. Much like you need to download the My Disney Experience app for a Disney World vacation or the Disneyland app for a Disneyland one, it's important to download the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app months before the start of your trip. Initially, the app's going to show you a trip countdown along with your payment summary, online check-in, and trip modification options. But once you're actually on board the ship, the Navigator app will be your go-to guide to make sure you know what's happening on the ship at all times. When you're at the ship's terminal on embarkation day, go ahead and sign into the Navigator app to see all the different scheduled activities before you even board. It's the best way to use that waiting time. This is the earliest you can see your ship's specific itinerary. You'll also be able to see your scheduled rotational dining times and your stateroom number, so you're going to be all set to start putting those little hearts next to the things you want to do and figure out what you might want to change once you get on the ship. Next, deciding to Wi-Fi or not to Wi-Fi. The free Wi-Fi on board the Disney cruise ships is not your average Wi-Fi. The only thing it'll allow you to do is access your Disney Cruise Line Navigator app. Now, for some of y'all, that's going to be plenty of Wi-Fi, and cutting away from the outside world for a few days is going to be a much-needed reset for you. However, if you still want to post on social media or keep in contact with your family back home while you're on vacation, then you'll need to determine if you'd like to get an international plan for your phone or a cruise plan on your phone. I personally use the AT&T International plan that automatically notices if I go out of the country, and it costs me just $10 per day to keep my same data plan wherever I am. But Disney also offers up a plan called Connect at Sea, which offers internet packages where you'll pay by the data you use. So for instance, streaming movies will consume a lot more data than reading a quick email will. So you may have to pay more based on what you're using the plan for. You can also share a single Connect at Sea package among your whole group. The combined usage is tracked on a meter that you can keep an eye on via the browser window. Just note that not everyone can use it at the same time. Just be sure to figure out your game plan before you arrive, because letting your phone rack up roaming charges when you're out at sea is not a good idea and can cost you hundreds. I speak from experience. Let's talk Pirate Night. On Disney Cruise Line, Pirate Night can vary from ship to ship. But a common thread, definitely in those Bahamas cruises, is the nighttime deck parties, fireworks shows, dressed up characters, and depending on the length of your cruise, that themed pirate sit-down dinner too. On Pirate Night, families are encouraged to dress up and join in on the deck swabbing, plank walking fun. If you forget your peg leg and eye patch at home though, the gift shop on the ship is going to sell some costume pieces so you don't feel left out. The Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique also has an option for kids to be transformed into full-blown pirates, but again, that comes at a significant extra cost. So if you'd rather save your money to spend on other fun souvenirs and trinkets, remember to pack your own pirate outfit ahead of time. Or don't dress up at all. You certainly don't have to. You're still more than welcome to join in on Pirate Night with or without a hook hand and 5 o'clock shadow. And speaking of Pirates Night, it can be hectic as is, but the activity doesn't let up when the deck party ends. Right after the last of the Pirates Night fireworks shoot off, there is a quick buffet that opens at the buffet-style restaurant aboard your ship for anyone looking for a late-night meal. This will either take place at Cabanas or Marceline Market, depending on what you're cruising on. This buffet won't be open too terribly long, and the offerings will be much more limited than the regular buffet-style offering. Think pizza, tacos, nachos, etc. But it does give you one more chance to squeeze an all-inclusive meal before wrapping up your day. Word of warning, this quick pirate buffet gets chaotic and can run out of items fast, so check and see when exactly it's going to be up that evening. Again, it usually starts right after the deck party festivities, and make sure to line up for it early to get ahead of those hungry seafaring crowds. Okay, invest in a towel clip. The upper decks of the cruise ships can get really windy when your Disney cruise is merrily sailing along open waters, so it's not an uncommon occurrence for you to be relaxing by the pool and suddenly have your beach towel taken up by the wind. Or your chicken tenders. That has happened to me too, and my ketchup. Anyway, that's why beach towel clips can be a nifty and relatively inexpensive investment. It's like a chip clip for your towel, only instead of keeping your chips from going stale, you're keeping your towel from blowing away. These little clips simply clamp onto your chair and can hold not only your towel, but your hat and cover up too. I have yet to find a way to keep my chicken tenders and ketchup on their plate when I'm walking on the top deck to get to my deck chair, but if anybody has any ideas, please let me know. Now, it's a super bummer when you don't get the reservations you want before you set sail. So Here's our tip for that. There are a handful of different activities and seminars that you're going to need to book before your cruise in order to secure your spot for them. More on that later. But because some of these extras are so incredibly popular, like the beverage tasting seminars and the premium adult dining experiences, they could completely book up before you get the chance to reserve them. But don't lose hope. Sometimes last-minute availability will pop up on your Navigator app right when you board, so check and see if you can snag any last-minute reservations during those first few moments that you're in the terminal and you've switched over onto the DCL Cruise Wi-Fi. If you're still having trouble booking a certain experience, it's also worth heading over to guest services right when you board, just to see if a crew member can help you find any last-minute availability that you're not seeing on your end. This isn't a foolproof situation, but it's worked more than once for us, so you might as well try it too. Speaking of reservations, not every activity that you have to make advance reservations for is going to cost you extra, like the Princess Gathering that takes place in the Atrium. This is a special free meet and greet where you can meet several Disney princesses all at once. But due to its popularity, you have to make a reservation for it. Reserving a spot for the free Princess Gathering works just a tad differently from other advanced reservations. You still need to visit the My Cruise Activities page within your booking window, either online or in the Navigator app. But for the Princess Gathering specifically, online availability opens for all guests 30 days prior to sail date. Other premium reservations will open earlier for you depending on your cruise status, which you can learn more about on the Disney Cruise website. If you're trying to book a spot for the Princess Gathering and you're coming up dry, try choosing another time slot, since depending on the length of your cruise, you might have more than one opportunity to see this royal posse. Not every meet and greet aboard your ship requires a special reservation time, though. In fact, most character meet and greets are simply walk-ups. The Fab Five will wander through the ship throughout your entire cruise, and kids can meet characters while hanging out at the Oceaneer Club, too. Ooh, one of my favorite tips for introverts or just people who don't want to be in giant crowds is to skip the hectic breakfast crowds in the morning. Because in the morning, passengers are going to be flocking to the breakfast buffet. So if you want to avoid all the people first thing in the morning, you've potentially got two other options for your all-inclusive breakfast. First, you can eat a sit-down meal. Select dining room areas aboard your cruise might be available for you to eat in instead. Normally, you'd eat at these dining room locations during one of your rotational dinners, but some of these restaurants open in the morning too for a more casual and relaxed table service experience. You'll see all this information, including menus, on your Navigator app. And option 2, order free room service. Yep, breakfast can be delivered straight to you, so you can start your day with a relaxing bite to eat while watching the ocean waves from your balcony. The room service breakfast menu is typically available from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., and room service breakfast items consist primarily of continental breakfast-style options like juices, coffee, and tea, pastries including muffins and donuts, toast, and cereals. Room service is 24 hours, and while it's free to use, make sure to budget for gratuity if you plan on using it, which we're going to talk about more a little later on. Also, keep in mind that room service breakfast won't be available on your debarkation day. That's the last day of your cruise when you're getting off the ship. Room service will only be available until 1:30 a.m. on the final day, so make sure to take advantage of it before then. Next tip is to prepare for darkness. Now, I promise this isn't a scary point unless you're scared of sleeping your cruise away, then be afraid. Inside staterooms are the most affordable rooms you're going to find aboard the ships, but they do have one major downside. There's no porthole or veranda where you're going to be able to see the outside world. You will, however, have a virtual porthole if you're cruising on either the Disney Dream or Disney Fantasy. While a missing porthole may not be a huge deal to you if it still ends up saving you money in the end, just know that once the light goes off in your room for bedtime, it's going to get really dark, and you won't have a sunrise to rely on each morning to tell you when it's time to get up. So make sure you set an alarm on your phone or request a wake-up call for your room if there's a certain time you want to be awake by, because your internal clock isn't always going to be the most reliable, especially on vacation. And if you're paying a bunch of money for one of those port excursions, you definitely want to be there on time. This next one's a funny one, and I think nobody talks about it, but I'm really excited that we are. Don't stress over long dinner lines. So DFB Bria, who's my scriptwriter, remembers the first night of her first ever Disney cruise. When she and her family made their way downstairs for their first rotational meal of the trip, the line to get into the restaurant was a mile long, and it panicked her initially. Were they supposed to get there earlier? Was this more like a Disney park than she realized and she should have rope dropped dinner? After that first night, though, she learned the truth. The dinner line is nothing to stress over. Everyone already has a predetermined table number, which you can find on your Navigator app, meaning nobody's gonna get left behind. So even if you wind up at the very tail end of the dinner line, that line does move along very quickly, so you'll still be seated before you know it. Just make sure you're still showing up to the restaurant on time so you don't miss out on all the interactive fun. Now that's Bria's advice. My advice takes it one step further to say, you don't necessarily have to show up exactly on time. I personally like to get to dinner about 10 minutes later than everybody else so I don't have to wait in the line. So basically, it's like I'm getting a fast pass to dinner. I'm not going to stand in the line, but I am going to arrive about the same time I would have gotten in if I'd waited in the line. Does that make sense? So I'll usually go to dinner. I'll stop at one of the bars or lounges, pick up a drink, and then go to dinner about 10 minutes late. And then I don't miss any of the interactive stuff, but I still, get there in time to not be too much of a hassle to my server who's trying to keep everything going. Next tip is a great one if you're flying in for your cruise. Don't set yourself up for stress before your cruise begins. If you're planning on flying into the city where your cruise is setting sail, pick a flight that'll arrive at least a day before your megaship is scheduled to depart. Because if you're scheduled to fly in on the day of, and your flight happens to have some sort of delay, which happens often as you know, then you might be late for embarkation, or even worse, you might miss your cruise entirely. So plan to be in your ship's city at least 24 hours out to avoid any of those preventable late arrival anxieties. Now I know a lot of people can't do that. They have to arrive on the day of. They don't want to spend the extra money on a hotel for the night before. I will usually, if I'm leaving from Port Canaveral, I will usually go do a Disney World day and then drive down to Port Canaveral or get transportation down to Port Canaveral. But if you don't want to do that, that's okay. Just make sure you're on the earliest flight available if you have to fly in on the day. Ooh, this is a really good one that I don't hear people talk about. Be aware of the Oceaneer Club hidden charge. So Disney's Oceaneer Club, available on all the ships, is a place where kids ages 3 to 12 can hang out in highly immersive Disney-themed areas to play games and meet characters and chill with their fellow peers in a space made just for them. It's basically the kids' club. And the best part about the Oceaneer Club, it comes included with your stateroom price. Mostly. It all depends on what you do with the Oceaneer bands. But let me back up a minute. Again, the Oceaneer Club is that complimentary offering that you need to register your kids for on the Navigator app or on the Disney Cruise Line website upon checking into your stateroom. This isn't a reservation where spots are limited, it's just a registration, so the crew knows how many kids they need to expect. Now, when you arrive at port to embark on your cruise, swing by the Oceaneer Club so your kids can get their Oceaneer bands. They'll use these bands to check into the club each time they visit. Now, when you pick up these Oceaneer bands, there will be a $12.95 charge on your stateroom tab for them. This is a deposit, which you're going to get back once you return the bands at the end of your cruise. However, if you forget to return the bands or you decide to keep one of them as a memento, that deposit will become a charge to your account. So don't forget to return the bands if you want that $12.95 back in your pocket. Don't get tricked by the trams. Okay, I've gotten stuck riding back and forth on the Castaway Cay trams before, so let's make sure you don't fall into the same trap. Disney's Castaway Cay is a pretty expansive private island, so you're more than likely going to want to take a tram to get around, especially if you're heading out to the adults-only Serenity Bay. There are 4 different trams available on Castaway Cay, though, and the most confusing tram system can be found over at the Pelican Point stop. That's because the trams here could go one of 2 ways. One tram will take you to Scuttle's Cove or back to the boat, while the very next one will take you on to Serenity Bay. Previously, the Castaway Cay crew members have told us that you can tell the difference between the 2 trams just by looking at them. The Serenity Bay tram tends to be the one with no doors, while the Scuttle's Cove tram is the one with doors. But if you want to make doubly sure you're not getting them confused or they don't suddenly switch up on you when you're visiting the island, just ask a nearby crew member which tram is on its way next. And keep your ears open too, because the crew members on the tram will let you know where they're planning on traveling as well. Now let's back way up to before your cruise and talk travel insurance. Disney Cruise Line actually has their own travel insurance packages. Through these packages, your family will be covered just in case any unexpected situations or medical emergencies pop up during or before your trip. The plan can be added to your cruise reservation through your travel agent or by calling 800-951-3532. And yeah, it's nice to have a safety net if things go awry and your trip has to be canceled for whatever reason, but you really may not need that insurance, either because your regular health insurance already covers medical emergencies abroad, or straight up, you just don't want to pay for the extra insurance and you'd rather risk taking the L if something goes wrong. These are all important things that you need to discuss with your group to decide whether the extra expense is going to be worth it, even just for some extra peace of mind. And speaking of things you can't control, let's talk about weather. You may not be able to control the weather, but you can certainly prepare for it. Not all Disney cruises go someplace tropical. If you're planning on traveling to a destination like Alaska or even Europe during some parts of the year, you're going to want to pack layers because nighttime will be brutally chilly on those upper decks. And if you're taking a fall or winter cruise, perhaps to enjoy some of the more festive seasonal offerings like Halloween on the High Seas or a Very Merry Time cruise, then the temps are still going to be cooler than you might experience during June, July, or August, whether you're Bahama bound or not. Even if you are planning on traveling someplace warmer and during the summer season, cloudy skies and rainy days can cool down your trip. So it's important to still pack some jackets or hoodies or something to keep yourself snuggly when it's dreary out. And don't forget the clashing seasons too. Not every destination follows the same winter, spring, summer, fall lineup that the States do. So if you're traveling over in Australia, for instance, then their summer months land during January and February because they're located in the southern hemisphere. So don't plan a February cruise thinking you're going to get nice mild temperatures only to be in a country where temps are sky high, and your suitcase is so not packed for that. You can keep track of these weather changes and patterns too just by checking the free AccuWeather app ahead of your trip. While storms may be more unpredictable, you can at least get a feel for what the temperatures are going to be like when you're out at sea and out at port too. Occasionally, your cruise will encounter more than just stormy skies. Hurricane season in the Atlantic runs from June 1st through November 30th, which is a pretty long time. This doesn't mean you shouldn't cruise during this time. It's usually really cheap to cruise during this time, but it is important to keep checking the forecast leading up to your trip. It's actually pretty rare for a Disney cruise to get flat out canceled. They'll often change the itinerary or the route or the departure port because, your ship is portable. They can move it someplace else away from the storm. Or they might delay the trip for a few days instead of canceling it outright. However, there is a small chance that your cruise could be canceled if the situation calls for it, if you can't get anywhere else. So you should keep that in mind when making plans. In the rare occurrence that Disney does actually cancel your cruise, they will issue a refund. Occasionally, they might even offer you a discount on a future cruise. But if you are booking through a third party, make sure you do your research on their cancellation policies too. Now, this next one is another one that I don't hear people talking about very often. I think it's really, really important because this is something that's still incredibly confusing for me when I'm on the ships. The time zone you might start sailing in might not be the one you stay in, depending on where your Disney cruise is taking you. Now, according to the Disney website, your ship will usually go by the time in the local time zone that you're crossing into. However, if that time switch is going to be brief, they may not change it over at all. At either rate, you're going to want to keep an eye on your Disney Cruise Line Navigator app since it's going to tell you whether or not you should be switching time zones aboard the ship. Sometimes they even switch time zones when the area you're in wouldn't necessitate a time zone change. It's very confusing and I don't fully understand why they do it sometimes and not other times. Anyway, this is crucial information since your smartphone is going to pay attention to the time zone you're actually in and will automatically switch over for you if you have that Wi-Fi connected. And if the ship itself doesn't switch over along with it, then you might accidentally end up running late to a reservation or activity, and we don't want that. Here's a good tip if you're feeling a little queasy or you just don't feel like getting out of bed. For each cruise, you'll typically have the chance to watch 1 or 2 Broadway-style performances on select evenings inside the Walt Disney Theater. You're also going to be able to see a specialty variety show featuring a whole group of fan-favorite Disney tunes. But, there may be a situation that prevents you from leaving your stateroom when one of those shows is about to start. Maybe you're feeling seasick or your kid's feeling overstimulated and they're not going to sit still for a whole performance. And while it may not be the exact same thing as sitting in the theater and experiencing the show live, pre-recorded versions of those main productions also play on the television in your stateroom. So even if you have to miss out being there, you don't have to truly miss out on the show. Ooh, we're back to breakfast. So the all-inclusive meals don't stop once you're on Castaway Cay. You can still enjoy those all-you-can-eat entrees over at quick service places like Cookies Barbecue, Cookies 2 Barbecue, and the adults-only Air Bar Barbecue found on Serenity Bay. So that means you don't have to worry about backtracking to the ship if you don't want to pay for your lunch or snacks in the middle of your Bahamian beach day. That being said, these island restaurants are only open for a few hours, typically between 11:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. Considering you can typically get off the ship and start your island adventures as early as 8 a.m., you're going to want to make sure you've already eaten breakfast that morning while you're on the ship, or else you're going to have to wait 3+ hours before the island restaurants open up for you. So grab your breakfast before your Castaway Cay day. Remember, you can have it delivered to your room by room service, you can go to the buffet, and there also may be a sit-down restaurant that's offering breakfast that day too. Oh, I love this tip. I remember finding this out, I feel like 100 years ago, maybe 2011, I figured this out. I'm probably DCL's #1 fan when it comes to their unlimited soft serve, but I wouldn't be so quick to skip the premium ice cream options. So premium sundaes can be ordered at specialty ice cream and candy shops aboard the ships. And yeah, I know some of those rotational dinners have sundaes already listed on the dessert menu that are included with your meal, but these premium sundaes go above and beyond, especially if you choose to order something like the Vanellope Von Schweet's Race Cart Sundae, available on the Disney Dream, which is served in an adorable race cart that looks just like Vanellope's own set of wheels straight out of the Wreck-It Ralph films. And guess what else? You can have these specialty sundaes pre-ordered and delivered to your table at the end of your rotational dinner. This is so much fun. Just go to the candy shop or the ice cream shop on board, order your giant shareable ice cream sundae, and tell them where you're dining that night and what your table number is, and they will bring it to you for dessert. It's such a fun idea and definitely a fun surprise. I surprised my mom with this on her birthday. So it does feel a little bit like you're showing off because nobody else is going to know you can do this, but it's okay. It's worth it. All right, this is one of the biggest tips, and you need to listen to this one. Hit up the water coasters on day one. The Aqua Mouse on the Disney Wish, the Aqua Duck on the Dream and Fantasy, and the Aqua Dunk on the Magic are the main character water coasters and slides for their respective ships. But the lines for them can get pretty lengthy, especially during the heat of the day. So my best advice for you is to do these early, like right before they open early. This is the first thing I like to do just as soon as I board one of the ships, as long as the rides are open, or at the very least getting ready to open. When you're out at sea, the water rides could open as early as 9 to 10 a.m. daily. However, on Embarkation Day and Castaway Cay Day, they'll probably wait to open later, more around 1 p.m. As usual, your Navigator app is going to give you specifics for when these rides are going to be open and how long they'll stay open. But the advice still stands: the earlier you can get in line for these rides, the less likely you'll have to wait 30+ minutes to ride them later on. Another big tip for the water coasters: if you don't care about going to your rotational dinner or the show that night, that is a great time to ride these water coasters, because you know what? Everybody else cares about going to their rotational dinner and their show that night, and so everybody's at those. So if you have a kid who maybe is a super sensor and doesn't really do well with big crowds or waiting in long lines, it may be worth it to skip dinner one night, especially if you're on a longer cruise and you're going to all of those restaurants more than once. Maybe skip dinner one night and go ride the water coasters during dinner or during the showtime. Back to food, because of course we are. Next tip is to invest in a refillable popcorn bucket. Okay, before it's time for you to head to the Walt Disney Theater to see one of the Disney Cruise Line's live Broadway-style productions, you may want some hot, buttery, salty popcorn to go along with it. You can pick up popcorn from the concession stands right outside the theater entrances. But here's the catch: popcorn is not included with your all-inclusive price. Instead, you're going to have to pay around like $5 a bag for it, unless that is you invest in a refillable popcorn bucket. The Disney Cruise Line's popcorn buckets cost about $9 plus, depending on the design, and are going to give you super discounted popcorn refills for the remainder of your cruise, costing about $1.50 instead of $5 each time you want more popcorn. And by the way, the buckets are the same buckets that you're going to find in the Disney parks, so that's really, really cool. Now, your popcorn bucket will only work during the duration of your cruise, so fill it up while you can. Now, this next one might be the easiest trick of the entire video: booking your Disney cruise through a reliable travel agent. We recommend Small World Vacations, is free, and helps you save money on your trip. It also lifts the heavy burden of having to do all the pre-planning yourself and could even earn you money in the end. Yep, that's what I said. Travel agents often offer bonuses for people who book cruises through them. Basically, these bonuses work as free ship credit that you can spend on things like special beverages, dining in signature restaurants, and other cruise-worthy extras. You get anywhere from $50 to $1,000 in onboard credit, depending on which cruise you book and who you book with. If you're interested in reaching out for a free quote from our Small World friends, I'll put their information down in the description for you. Okay, this is a weird tip, but a valuable one. Pack clothespins. So the bathroom in your stateroom, no matter what stateroom style you're residing in, should have a retractable clothesline you can use above the tub. So if you've got any wet swimsuits or swim shorts that you need to hang out and dry, so using clothespins instead of hanging a bunch of stuff over the line means you can actually hang more and drip dry more swimsuits and towels and things like that. Now, by the way, if you need your clothes washed and dried in a jiffy, each ship also has 24-hour self-service laundry machines on board for an extra fee. So it might also be a good idea to bring aboard some travel-sized detergents or dryer sheets. That way you don't have to pay extra for them while you're there. Also, you can send your clothes out to get dry cleaned. That is an option that you can do on the cruise. There is dry cleaning information in your stateroom. Now, how about taking part in a virtual scavenger hunt? If you're not watching any shows or eating any big meals or splashing the day away in the pools or getting ready to take on one of the ship's numerous scheduled activities, what else can you do while you're sailing the day away? How about a fun and free scavenger hunt? When you cruise with the Disney Fantasy or the Dream, you can play the Midship Detective Agency. This game is accessed through the Navigator app and lets you join in on the hunt to find clues, use immersive technology around the ship, and help out your fellow Disney pals to solve some exciting interactive mysteries. Or if you're sailing aboard the Wish, you'll have the new scavenger hunt-like game to play called Disney Uncharted Adventure. During this one, you'll use augmented reality, again through the Navigator app, to track down magical constellations and help Captain Minnie find missing wishing star fragments throughout the ship, while also playing some fun mini games along the way. Now, this is a very, very cool tip that I have not heard before, so hopefully it's a new one for you too. You can predict the future of movies. No need for a crystal ball for this one. Each Disney cruise offers free Disney movies in multiple spots around the ship, like out on the funnel vision screen near the pools or in the ship's movie theaters. And while some Disney movies shown are ones you've probably seen countless times before, others are brand new movies that have possibly just hit theaters or maybe haven't even yet hit theaters, and you're now one of the first people that's going to get the chance to see it. It's fun to be surprised by what movies are going to be showing when you first arrive, but if you'd like to be in the know about what movies are going to be playing on your ship ahead of time, so you can plan ahead to watch it or maybe not go see it in the theater at home so that you can see it on the ship for free, just call up Disney Cruise Line's customer service. It's 800-951-3532 when you're getting closer to your sail date, and you can ask them. Customer service should have a good idea about what movies are going to be playing on board when you're at least 14 days out from your trip. Now, earlier I mentioned that many things on your cruise are going to be all-inclusive, but alcoholic beverages are not. That being said, you're more than welcome to bring your own alcohol on board, as long as it meets Disney Cruise Line's standards. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have good alcohol or anything. You can only bring so much alcohol. You can bring aboard 2 bottles of wine or champagne or a 6-pack of beer in those 12-ounce cans. You can even have room service bring wine glasses and a corkscrew up to your room. Just be aware that if you bring your own beer or wine to one of the dining rooms, you will have to pay a $25 corking fee per bottle. So you may want to keep your drinks inside your stateroom and avoid the extra charge altogether. You can also buy the same amount of wine and beer when you're out at your overseas port of call to bring back and enjoy on the ship later. However, other spirits are still not allowed on the ship, so if you are in the Bahamas and you buy a bunch of rum, you're not going to be able to bring that back to your room. Disney will confiscate it before they let you back on board. Now, that's not saying you're getting in trouble for purchasing it or anything. They just want to make sure everyone's safe and sticking to the rules, so they'll hold on to that liquor for you and give it back before you disembark at the end of your cruise. No harm, no foul. Now, this is one of the biggest and most important tips in the video. Book early. There are a few key reasons why you're going to want to book your Disney cruise as early as possible. Reason number 1, the earlier you book, the more likely you're going to be able to select the specific stateroom you want without having to choose from whatever's left over. Reason number 2, Disney Cruise Line has tiered pricing, meaning you'll find lower rates the earlier you book. And reason 3, passengers are required to put down a deposit when booking, but if you book early enough, you'll be able to pay down the remainder of your balance over time instead of having to pay for the majority of it it all at once. And reason number 4, if there are certain premium activities that you know you want to book before your trip, and you know these specific activities you've been eyeballing tend to fill up fast, then you're going to want to make sure you're able to book those reservations right when they open up. But you can't start reserving any activities until you've got your stateroom booked and paid for, so you're going to want to avoid dawdling if you don't want to accidentally miss that window of opportunity. And let's talk about seasickness next. It's not just seasickness you might have to worry about while you're out at sea. It could be any ailment like headache or sunburn, or in the case of my son, losing a literal toenail. Yes, this actually happened to us. My son and I were on Castaway Cay. He was probably about 8. And he jumped onto a hammock and he had a toenail that was kind of bruised from he dropped a desk on his toe. Anyway, this kid is accident prone, but he jumped on the hammock and he literally tore off his toenail. So that happened on Castaway Cay, if you can imagine. I'm sorry if that's too much information. But anyway, each ship has a health center located on deck 1 where you can get free sample-sized over-the-counter medications and bandages. And Castaway Cay, I found out, also has a rather rudimentary but functional first aid center as well, which we made good use of that day. But if there's a different kind of medication you're looking for, other over-the-counter drugs are also available for purchase at guest services and or the onboard shops. Note that onboard shops are only open when you are out at sea. They will not open when you're in port. They're legally not allowed to, so you can't rely on them when you're stopped in port. So if you need to purchase meds on a day your ship isn't sailing, go to guest services and ask to purchase them there instead. Now, if there's a medical emergency that you need to notify the crew about, the standard 911 number isn't going to work here. Instead, call 73000 from any ship phone to get in contact with the ship's 24-hour medical care team, ASAP. One of my favorite things about Disney Cruise Line is when you're first getting on the ship, your vacation is just starting, and from the moment you step onto your ship, you're going to be treated like royalty. But you need to be ready for that. Before you step out into the Atrium, a crew member will ask your group's name and announce it to the entire ship, welcoming you aboard. So make sure you've got your cameras ready. This is a great memory to have recorded, just so you can rewatch that excitement flood your kid's face on repeat. So while you're lining up to board the ship, have your phone out and ready for the big moment, and maybe let your kids go ahead and tell the cast member what the family name is so that they can be kind of the first one to walk through the door. So if you're looking to book a massage or enjoy a nice dinner with your partner, or even take a 3-hour undisturbed nap because it's your cruise and you should be able to do what you want, then you can drop off your little one ages 6 months to 3 years at the It's a Small World Nursery during the day. So this nursery spot works a little differently than the kids clubs do. While the spaces for kids and teens are free for them to use, there is a per hour charge with a minimum of 1 hour for the nursery. You also need to make reservations for the nursery. The reservations are set for a capacity of 4 infants, those not yet walking, and 16 toddlers, depending on the number of counselors on hand. To book your child's time in the nursery, you'll want to make a reservation just as soon as you're able to, since space is so limited. Depending on your stateroom or your Castaway Club status, you can start booking this option between 75 and 120 days out. Don't forget to bring your refillable water bottle. Having deja vu? I know, this is usually a tip we give you for the Disney parks, but bringing a refillable water bottle onto your Disney cruise can be very, very useful. Cruise ships often have water refill stations, which you'll typically find on the top deck as well as on the strolling decks. Filling up your water bottle at the start of your day can keep you hydrated even when you're not near a convenient refill station, like when you're out at Castaway Cay or gallivanting around another port of call. And then every time you walk by a refill station, just top it up. So we love to plan an Atrium night for one last time. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but at least you can see your bestest Disney pals one more time before you head back to dry land. On the last night of your cruise, the Atrium of your ship will host a final event called Till We Meet Again, or Wishing Ever After if you're on the Disney Wish. That's where several Disney characters will come out to not say goodbye, but rather see you real soon. Typically, these last hurrah events happen around 10 p.m., but as always, you can check your Disney Navigator app for updated times while you're on board. Also, be sure to prepare for mostly everything to be cash-free. For the most part, your cruise will be a cash-free experience, so when you pay for extras like gift shop souvenirs, specialty drinks, or other premium activities, you'll use your room key to charge back to the room. That being said, you will need to have cash on hand when you're out exploring the other non-Disney overseas ports, or if you plan on tipping extra for crew members. Tipping on the Disney cruises can be pretty confusing, but here's what you need to know for now. Prepaid gratuities are automatically added to your final bill for your dining room server, your dining room assistant server, your dining room head server, and your stateroom host. You can adjust how much you want to tip through your Disney Cruise Line account, but if you forget to, Disney will go ahead and plug in the recommended tipping amount for you, which is about $14.50 per night per stateroom guest. You can always change this amount later on over at guest services before the end of your cruise. Now, not all crew members who wait on you are going to be included in this automatic tip amount, so you'll still want to plan on tipping other crew members, like your servers at those adults-only dining reservations, the lounge bartenders, room service crew members, the Port Adventures squad, the Senses Spa and Salon members, and the concierge lounge team too if you're staying concierge. Now, not all of those will be necessary additional tips since you may not end up using all of those different services. But if you do, tips will either again be included in the charge or be left to your discretion, meaning you'll want to have some cash on hand so you don't end up shortchanging someone who did a great job making your cruise extra memorable. I also like to bring cash so that I can tip the porters that are at the terminal when they're taking my luggage and when they're helping me out with my luggage as well. So just to reiterate, if you need something and you're not sure how to accomplish it, head to guest services. Always head to guest services. They may not be able to do everything for you, but they can point you in the right direction. This includes even the things you might not necessarily be thinking about before you board, like currency exchanges. If you're traveling toward a port of call that doesn't accept US dollars, but you still want to make sure you're able to make purchases while you're out and about exploring, guest services can make those exchanges with no problem. While Disney Cruise Line won't charge you anything extra for this service, keep in mind that exchange rates do fluctuate regularly, so you'll want to keep an eye on those rates before you board. All right, let's talk luggage again. If you want the ship's crew members to take your luggage out to the terminal for you on debarkation day, then you'll need to set those bigger bags outside your stateroom the night before you leave. Typically, you'll need them out by 10:30 p.m., but please check the Navigator app and don't rely on what I just said since your ship's schedule might be totally different for your cruise. Now, while this method of getting your luggage out to the terminal is totally legit and shouldn't be too much of a headache, it will take quite a bit of time to wait and pick up your luggage at customs each time you use this method. So if you're in a hurry and you want to avoid those long debarkation lines, then you might want to consider using the express walk-off option instead, which is what I always try to use if I'm on a solo trip or just there with one other person. Sometimes if I'm there with my whole family, then I need to use the regular service because it's just too many bags for me to carry, but usually I just have, one bag. So express walk-off means you keep all your luggage with you instead of leaving it out for the crew the night before, and then you can get up and debark as early as 7 a.m. as soon as the ship has been cleared by customs. You will have to miss your last all-inclusive breakfast if you choose to use this express option, but that might be worth it if you're trying to make it on time to your flight, or you simply want to get off the ship and not have to wait in those long lines for customs. Okay, so what are those bizarre pouch-like decorations you'll find outside of several ship staterooms? These, my friends, are called fish extenders, which are basically hanging gift bags that passengers can choose to purchase ahead of their trip and hang outside their cabin door as a sort of mailbox-like feature that other passengers can drop goodies into. This is a cruise tradition created by Disney Cruise Line fans and not by Disney itself. They're called fish extenders because on the original ships, the little clips outside your door were fish. So that's where you hang your fish extender. Now, you can hand make these fish extenders or you can buy them off Etsy or Amazon, but the important thing to remember here is that Disney doesn't have a whole lot to do with this extra cruise feature, nor will they sell you a fish extender in the cruise gift shops. So you will have to purchase one in advance if you want to participate. You'll also need to connect with other fellow passengers who will be on board your same ship before your cruise, so you'll have a family to actually exchange goodies with. Most folks find their fish extender friends through Disney Cruise Line forums online or on mutual Disney Cruise Line Facebook group pages, but just make sure the site you're using to meet these cruise line companions is a reliable one and above board, and that you're not giving away any super personal information while you're trying to find your fish extender matchup. Now here's a brand new update, y'all. Fish extenders are a-okay, but hiding little rubber ducks around the nooks and crannies of the ship is no longer allowed. Let me back up a second. So there's this tradition on Disney cruises where guests bring little rubber duckies to hide all over the cruise ship for other guests to find. Much like the fish extenders, this isn't a Disney-sanctioned activity. But unlike the fish extenders, Disney doesn't condone the practice of hiding ducks in public spaces on its cruise ships. So if a passenger does hide one and a crew member finds it first, they are going to remove it. That being said, don't let all your rubber duckies go to waste. You can still slip them into fish extender pockets for fellow passengers if you've got them. That way, your little yellow squeaky dudes can still find a home post-cruise. And that's the beauty of a Disney cruise. Once you pay for your stateroom, those all-inclusive meals are going to give you so much dining freedom, so order what you want. During your rotational dinner, you can order whatever you want, however you want it. You can order a standard appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. You can order 2 appetizers and 2 desserts. You can order 2 entrees. Whatever you want to eat, your server will bring it to you. And that goes for the kids versus adults menus at these rotational restaurants too. While the restaurants will have separate kids menu options for your child, your kid is still more than welcome to order anything off the adult menu that they'd like if there's something on there that they think they'd enjoy more, and vice versa. If you're not really vibing with any of the adult entrees and you'd rather stick with something like kids chicken tenders or a slice of pizza, you can totally order off the kids menu yourself. The choice is yours and yours alone. But my word of advice, remember that this food isn't actually free. It's all prepaid through your stateroom bill. So don't be afraid to try the items you think would be higher out-of-pocket cost if you're looking to stretch your dollar further. You don't have to, but you may want to. We might not be at a Disney park this time, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be doing a whole lot of walking during your cruise, especially when you're at your port of call. The Disney ships and Disney's Castaway Cay do have strollers available to rent, but these stroller rentals are extremely limited, so you're not guaranteed to get one. If you're not willing to risk that gamble, you want to remember to pack a stroller with you. Just don't plan on packing anything too bulky if you can avoid it, because bulky strollers and narrow ship corridors, quite the crowd congestion nightmare. Just pack a stroller that's lightweight and easy to fold up and store, just a little umbrella thing. That way you can easily carry it around with you and you don't have to worry about it taking up a lot of space in your already compact stateroom. If you're a tea drinker, I've got good news and bad news. Good news first, you can brew a variety of Twinings hot tea flavors all day long over in the dining rooms, buffets, and at the 24-hour beverage stations located on the pool deck. Now, the bad news for some, iced tea on board the ships tends to be unsweetened. There are sugar packets and honey containers available that you can use to sweeten it yourself, but if you are a southerner through and through, then that might not be the same for you, and the sugar granules never quite dissolve like you want them to once your tea is cold. For all the southern folk out there, watch out. While you'll have several drink options to choose from, you're not going to find any southern sweet tea on the 7 Seas, but you can pack a few bottles of it in your checked luggage if you don't want to go all cruise long without it. The next tip is a spa tip. The Senses Spa can be a great way for grown-ups to relax and enjoy some peace and quiet and professionally executed massages. But if you're not aware of these 3 things, your peaceful spa day could run into a hitch. Spa warning number 1. Avoid booking a spa treatment on embarkation day if you can. On the first day of your cruise, crew members will be touring passengers through Senses Spa multiple times during the afternoon and evening, which can make your afternoon feel more like you're a zoo animal on display. After that first day, however, Senses Spa should be a whole lot less busy feeling. Spa warning number 2, don't stress over the sales pitch. During your massage treatment, your masseuse might recommend purchasing the product that they're using. It's okay to say no thank you. Your masseuse will get the hint and drop the pitch so you can return to your regularly scheduled spa treatment. Unless you do want to purchase the product, then by all means go for it. Spa warning number 3, be aware of co-ed spaces. Not every area of the Senses Spa is broken up by gender. The Rainforest Room is a co-ed space for everybody, but nothing scandalous happens here, of course. The Rainforest Room is simply a relaxing place with aromatherapy and saunas, but just a heads up, keep your suit on. Now, this is one of my favorite tips because it caused quite a problem on my last cruise. So Disney Cruise Line has a whole laundry list of things they absolutely 110% don't want you to bring on board, because if you try to smuggle in these items, they're going to be confiscated. So these include things like clothes steamers and surge protectors and other power strips and bigger electrical appliances that could be deemed as fire hazards, like rice cookers. Believe it or not, lots of rice cookers get confiscated. Disney also doesn't want any over-the-door hooks brought on board, since they could potentially scratch the paint or damage the door itself. So if someone recommends you bring one for your cruise to help you keep hold of your jewelry or cosmetic bags or your toiletries or anything, just ignore them, because a crew member will take these door hangers away if they see them. Oh, and there's one I learned the hard way. You can't bring full-size scissors with you either, which is, of course, you remember what my mom brought in her suitcase to cut the tags off her new clothes. I don't know why we didn't cut our tags off our clothes before we left, Mom, but alas. And that caused her suitcase to be held back for further inspection, which means we didn't see it in our stateroom till after 8 p.m. at night, which was a really long time to wait on your luggage when we left the port at like 4:30. and had no idea if her bag was even on board. So if you don't want your luggage delivery delayed or you don't want your items taken away from you throughout the duration of your trip, leave these things at home and make sure to check the Disney Cruise Line website for other forbidden items that you can't bring along with you either. Bring those magnetized hooks. You may not be able to use over-the-door hooks on your Disney cruise, but you can use the magnetized ones. The walls of your Disney Cruise Line cabin are all made of magnetized metal, so hooks are so useful when it comes to storage. Use them for your lanyards, your towels, your tote bag, your wet bathing suit, your bathrobe, anything. You can get a pack of 10 hooks off Amazon for around $8. Be sure to get those ones that are super heavy duty, and they will hold a lot of stuff. From my recent cruise experience with my mom, BYOW, bring your own wheelchair. Disney cruises don't have wheelchair rental services like you're going to find inside Disney parks, so you'll need to make sure if you're traveling with someone who has mobility concerns or you have mobility concerns yourself that you bring your own wheelchair on board with you. I got a transport wheelchair for my mom and it worked perfectly for us to traipse around at our ports of call. You may also want to consider renting a mobility device through a third-party service instead, if that'll make things easier for you. The only wheelchairs available on the ships are the ones that can help assist guests during embarkation and debarkation day, as well as for emergency use only. Otherwise, you gotta provide your own set of wheels. As far as getting around after you board, Disney recommends that passengers with mobility concerns contact Disney Cruise Line Special Services ahead of time so they can assist you in other ways and make sure your trip is still as smooth sailing as possible. Castaway Cay, on the other hand, does have free wheelchairs available on the private island, which are sand resistant and easy to push around the beach, or basically sand wheelchairs. Beach wheelchairs are first come, first serve, so you're going to want to snag yours before starting your Castaway adventures. These can be found at the Scuttles Cove tram stop, the Pelican Point tram stop, and the Serenity Bay tram stop. And don't forget to attend the open houses. There's only one way that grown-ups are going to be able to see the Oceaneer Club in person, since it's a no parents allowed zone, and that's during the cruise line's open houses. Open houses allow adults to get a sneak peek at those kids-only spaces before the fun begins, so you can gauge if it's the right place for your kid or not. And trust me, you're going to want to see them because these kids clubs are so cool. Usually you're going to find open houses listed on your Navigator app during embarkation day, but open houses can also happen at other times throughout your cruise too. Just check the app's updated schedule for a list of times so you don't have to leave the ship feeling FOMO that you potentially missed out on something ultra cool. And to be fair, this next one isn't really a tip that'll make your cruise easier, but it's still a whole lot of fun. When you order a specialty coffee or other caffeinated beverage at one of the cruise cafes, ask your barista if they can add a Disney character to it. That way, instead of just getting a normal old boring cappuccino, you can have one with a fun Disney character dusted right on the top. Call me easily amused, but this always makes me immensely happy. And dare I say, I think the added character makes the coffee taste better? Maybe? Time for you to sail away with ease. Thank you for hanging out with me for all these 50 tips and points from our recent cruises that we've come up with. And don't forget to check out our Ultimate Disney Cruise free guide over at disneyfoodblog.com/cruise planning. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.